Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is the iplicit webinar on finance reporting. We're going to start shortly. We've got lots of people joining at the moment, so we'll just give them another minute or so, and then we'll make a start sharp just after 10. So thank you.
Morning, everyone. Welcome to the iplicit Finance Reporting webinar. Thank you all for joining us today. So the session today is going to be led by myself, but predominantly Guy Burton. I'm a Senior Solutions Consultant here at iplicit. Guy will lead the product demonstration part of the session today, which is, of course, going to be tailored to finance reporting. Next slide, please, Guy. So I'm going to spend 5 minutes or so just setting the table around iplicit, who we are, what we do, and then specifically what makes us different from a reporting standpoint, and then a high-level example of how the structure of the platform works, because I think that'll lead into what Guy's going to show today around reporting. Next slide, please, Guy. So what makes us different? So I would say there's nothing like iplicit in the marketplace. The way I describe the solution is a best-in-class mid-market solution. Now, we speak to a lot of frustrated legacy users and SME customers, so the likes of QuickBooks and Xero, but it is worth stressing we've got enterprise-level functionality, but at a fraction of the cost. So what the graphic is essentially showing is us migrating clients from the likes of QuickBooks, Xero, or legacy solutions, and then being part of that evaluation for clients alongside the ERP solutions. And the big unique selling point, certainly for me, is the speed of implementation. So you're looking at 16 days as standard, meaning you can be live in a new system much quicker than with other options, other vendors in the marketplace, but also it enables product adoption and minimizes disruption to the organization, which is, of course, key when moving from one finance system to a new offering. Next slide, please, Guy. So why iplicit? So whilst iplicit's a relatively new offering, there's huge benefits to this. So it's a modern solution, and it's built by a team with 3 decades plus of expertise in accounting software. It's a simple ERP, and Guy will show that in terms of how intuitive the solution is. On the commercial standpoint, it's a 12-month license agreement and then a rolling monthly agreement thereafter. Now, I've been doing this for kind of 14 years in the accountancy software space, and I'd never come across that before. And it allows us to serve customers like they're new customers at all times. And I think it's very easy when you hear terms like simple ERP or a great price point to think the solution might not be quite so powerful. Well, the absolute opposite is true, and that's something that we're going to showcase today. It's a very powerful solution. Next slide, please, Guy. So the advantages of the product and the functionality. Now, I'm always conscious I don't want to steal Guy's thunder on this. So the unlimited GL analysis, that is the dimensional structure, and that's key to what we're going to show today around reporting. Multi-company and multi-currency, that is how the platform is built from the ground up. So it's as easy to run a management report for one entity as 100 or P&L in euro, dollar, GBP, any currency that you can imagine. Open API and essentially the complete business solution. So broad strokes, if it makes sense for information to fit into the finance function, we can push that information in via the open API and also push information out. Common examples would be a CRM or payroll integration. Automation is key to what we do. It's at the heart of what we do. So if something's time consuming and very manual, prone to human error, we would look to automate that. And that's something that we're constantly evolving. And you can see that in the releases tab of the product in terms of where we're going and the plans we've got into Q2 and so on. The workflow approvals and the authorization, this is really interesting. So it's not just based on transactional levels. So I raise a transaction for £1,000. Guy needs to sign that off for me. If it's over 10,000, Jenny needs to sign that off for Guy. So there's a couple of tiers to that. It can also be something like a supplier account. If I go in and change a supplier's bank details, it would notify Guy that that's happened. I might also need to provide an attachment, i.e. the supplier's confirmation if they change a bank details. And yes, multi-currency, cover that off. The way the platform is designed is for currency, multi-currency and multi-entity. So the next slide, please, Guy. So every time I show this slide, actually, it's out of date, and that's because we've got ambitious plans for 2023. The number of customers and users is always growing. The only thing really to call out on here is the retention rate. Anything that falls outside of that 97% is almost entirely made up of acquisitions. Next slide, please, Guy. So part of the job description, to a degree, is singing the praises of iplicit. That's kind of what we do. So it is always worth ratifying things with this. So we've won the best mid-market solution twice recently. We also have a 5-star Captiva rating. So what that is users on the platform submitting reviews of their experience and we're FCA regulated. So myself and Guy will, of course, say iplicit's fantastic, which we believe. But the marketplace, our peers, and people using the product every day are giving us fantastic feedback. So it's always nice to celebrate that. Next slide, please, Guy. So yes, very conscious. This slide's really detailed and intentionally so because it demonstrates the level of granular reporting you can get out of iplicit with just a few clicks. So if we look to the very bottom of the slide and we can run through a transactional input and output. So the bottom line here is essentially a tech product sale. Now, the first couple of areas, the chart of accounts, that would be standard in all systems, your GL structure. Then legal entity, not so much. You would need to have a multi-entity product. So the first two are high-level capture points. So you could slice and dice based on your GL code or the company that a transaction's posted in. Again, high-level grouping. Everything thereafter on the slide is more granular in terms of producing detailed reporting. So it might be something like, how do sales in the London office compare to Singapore? Or are you selling more SME? Or are you selling more to SME companies or enterprise companies? Do you have a product that's particularly popular in Brazil or not so much in the US market? You can do all of that just with a few clicks based on that transactional input at the very start of the process. So you could run a report on sales in North America when selling to public sector organizations. It's very, very straightforward to achieve that. Now, if we flip that on its head and don't think about sales at all, you might want to run a report on all staff expenses in the dev department in Abu Dhabi. You could do that just as easily as you can see from your GL structure, and then you kind of flow through from there. It is worth caveating all of this. This is an example, and it's entirely customizable to your organization. So whatever makes sense for the output of the reporting that you want to get, that's how it would be built from the ground up. Then the output would be that granular reporting. Next slide, please, Guy. So that's it, essentially me done now, just to set the table for Guy, the second part of the agenda. So flexible granular reporting, I just touched on that there in terms of how that is built. Real-time self-service, that's a very interesting one because it's going to enable not just the finance team, but the wider organization to self-serve and access information that's key to them. And then third-party reporting. So essentially real-time reporting in system versus exporting that information out and manipulating it. And with that being said, I'll hand over to Guy because I'm conscious we all want to see it.
Everyone likes listening to you, Luke. Hi, everyone. So I am going to, if I click the screen, I'm going to take you through those three particular areas. So the first one was about getting that analysis, as Luke's been mentioning. So we start with that. We'll talk about graphs and charts later on. Every finance system, including iplicit, needs to start with a chart of accounts. So your chart of accounts needs to be straightforward, but it needs to be granular enough, as Luke was mentioning, to get some of the details that you need, or the main details you need for your profit and loss accounts, balance sheets, management reports, cash flows, that type of thing. What you also need to be able to do, though, is based on our experience, because we've been around a bit, worked with lots of different finance systems across our organisation, and we decided when we started with iplicit, what we wanted to be able to do was not limit people in terms of that analysis that Luke was mentioning, to be able to add as many different dimensions as we wanted to each particular account code. And also to make that, to empower our users, to empower our customers to be able to manage that process themselves. So it's not necessarily, once we've started and implemented the system, that's set in stone for the rest of for the next 10, 15 years. We want you to be able to flex that. We want to be able to grow your chart of accounts, grow your analysis from the finance system as you change and evolve as an organization. And most importantly, we don't want to restrict you to anything. So when we implement iplicit, one of the first things that we do is we'll ask people, what do you want to get out of the system at the end of the day? Because that then drives all of those different dimensional requirements, all those different analysis levels, and getting that right. And from the start, because we've got unlimited dimensions, it means that I can ask iplicit to analyze out certain sections of the chart of accounts in different ways. I might want this set of account codes analyzed out in a particular way. I might want another set of account codes analysed out to a far deeper level. We use chart of account rules to make sure that people have got the ability to change that information, and also to change it nice and easily. So I don't need any degree to change any of this. It's just a simple fact of just being able to go and select those additional charts of accounts. So in Luke's example, if I wanted to add in additional levels, additional resources, additional product information to my dimensions within that chart of accounts, it's nice and easy for me to do so. As part of that process, we can also make some of these fields mandatory. We can make them drop downs for the end users. We can make them defaults. That way, we're capturing that information with a minimum level of input from an end user. And just to display that as an example, so if I was putting on an invoice, let's put on a sales invoice. I'm going to choose a customer. And then when I choose an account code, if I choose what's first sales account, you see I'm just getting just 2 levels of analysis on that particular part of the chart of accounts. Let's go and put some money in. If I add in another dimension, another chart of accounts, this time I've got more analysis levels with the ability and the way that we're surfacing the data to those end users who are inputting that information, or as Luke was saying, if you're connecting iplicit to Salesforce, to your e-commerce system, or to other platforms as well, that can be populating and automating the population of these data fields. Because we've got that ability, I can also then restrict it to end users. So it's only going to show me the cost centers, for example, for my region, for my department, for my area. So that makes it easy for an end user. You can also make fields mandatory. So in this case, I've put some project analysis in there. So we don't care really how much analysis levels that you want to. I'm not going to say you should go to any extremes. What we need to do, though, is make sure that we can capture that information at source, at transaction entry point. And then once I've got that, then I can do all of the different financial analysis, management analysis, statutory analysis, nice and simply, without having to resort to dumping it into an Excel spreadsheet and doing something in there. So once I've posted an invoice, what sort of things could I analyze things out to? And from a reporting point of view, we're not just talking about financial reporting, management accounts, which is obviously key to a finance system. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it's other reporting across the organization. It might be I'm running the accounts receivable ledger, I'm running the accounts payable ledger, I'm running projects, I'm running my particular department. All of that sort of analysis should be available across the organization, and we'll talk about how we self-service that in a minute. But by being able to have those different dimensions, and with iplicit we have, as well as the dimensions to the nominal ledger, we have a whole suite or an unlimited amount of custom fields. So additional information, if you wanted to, for example, group your customers in a particular way, because that suits how the sales team reports. If I've got a multi-company organization, I might want to see my age debtors and age creditors information by the entities that I've got within the organization. But we don't want you to be fixed by the inquiry screens, which these are, that iplicit deliver with the software. So we want you to be able to flex that information. So I'm looking at my age creditors report, age debtors report, and maybe I want to bring in those legal entities into this particular chart. So the ability to sort of drag and drop information, drag and drop those different analysis fields into the different inquiry screens within iplicit, as well as then being able to pull these out into reports that we'll take a look at later on. I've also got the ability to drill down into that information as well. That we find really, really helps from an end user's point of view, as well as the finance team, but to be able to get to the granular transactional level detail, to drill down into transactions, to see how the transactions have formed, what they affect, that type of thing, is really important to be able to, for people to be able to self-serve and also to be able to get answers to the questions that they want. So I've got a nice chart of accounts. I've got a chart of accounts with dimensional analysis in the right areas that I want. What I need to do is then maybe look at some management accounts. So lots of those with the system. Again, we display those in an inquiry screen. So I've got the ability to format that chart of accounts into a hierarchical tree, which is just a fancy way of saying, I need these nominal codes grouped up into this area because that's how we like our management accounts. That's how we budget, for example. Now, you may budget at a cost center, a department level, a region level, a product level. All those different levels, the budgets can be entered and roll up into those particular areas. And we'll take a look at budgeting shortly. But the way that the stakeholders of the reporting information out of a finance system just tends to be very varied. You might have a set of data. This might be the format that we have for our board reporting, for our management reports, that type of thing. And I might want to see that by an accounting period, or I might want to see how we've done over the last 4 years. So being able to flex that data and slice and dice it, as we like to say, comes intuitively, we hope, to iplicit. Nice and easy for end users, but the format, we also want to be able to define that in different ways, shapes and forms. That might be fine for our management accounts, but we've also got a US subsidiary, so I need some US GAAP account formats. I might have a French subsidiary, so I might need to see that chart of accounts in a completely different look and feel for our French reporting. So having the ability to map your chart of accounts into these different formats is what we call an accounts pack. And with those accounts packs, it means we can satisfy those different stakeholders, and not just from a year-end compliance point of view. You might be a non-profit organization that's funded by a particular donor who needs that they're going to give you some money, but they need you to analyze that money out, how you spent it, where that income and expenditure has gone in a particular way, particular shape or form. You might have a project that needs to be analyzed out slightly differently to the way that we do our management accounts reporting. Being able to flex that nominal account without me having to resort to exporting this data, and we can export data, any piece of data, out to Excel as well. But that just gives me that flexibility, and I can get live reporting from within the finance system as well. So all of that sort of information means it's important to get that analysis out quickly and easily. But going back to those dimensions that we talked about right at the beginning, okay, and I'll just move away from my, just so you can understand it, so it's not in French, because, and I haven't checked my French either, so I don't know how accurate my French chart of accounts actually is. But I've then got all those different dimensions as Luke was talking about. So if I want to analyze that out by a department, I can drag and drop that into iplicit's pivots, and then bring that information. I might want to put a cost center in there. And in fact, I want to put period down at the bottom. So all of those different analysis dimensions that Luke was talking about right at the beginning, I can flex those into the reporting requirements and reporting needs of me from a finance team's point of view, but also the end users across the organization as well, and other stakeholders too. So that means when I drill down into the accounts, I'm now drilling down into a cost center, now drilling down into a department, then drilling down into an accounting period. And if I click on a figure, that'll be the transactions that make up that balance for that month, for that cost center, for that department, for that year. Now, I may also have legal entities in there. I could drag that into the fields as well. But because we're a consolidated, a single environment system, all of your entities are part of iplicit. So if I'm looking at my age debtors report, I can look at that from a consolidated point of view. I'm looking at my chart of accounts, I can look at that from a consolidated point of view. Because of the automations that we have within iplicit, iplicit understands all of your intercompany eliminations. I want to take a look at my chart of accounts. Balance sheet would be a better example. Take a look at my balance sheet by legal entity. I've got filters on here that we've seen, so I can filter by department, by cost center, by any of those dimensions that we've got, regions, for example, and they can form hierarchies. What I can also do is ask iplicit, ask the reporting system, to say, actually, get rid of all my intercompany eliminations for me. Okay. So having that flexibility means I don't need to resort to spreadsheets that we do love, and we will talk about in a minute, but that flexibility allows me to then turn those different dimensions that Luke was talking about into lots of different things, and currency might be one of those dimensions. I've got lots of transactions coming in here from my French, from my Irish company, from my UK company. At the moment, I'm basing everything on GBP, but because of those analysis dimensions, currency is one of those as well. So I can then say, actually, I'd like to see that consolidated set of accounts in euros. I want to choose a different account rate, which is, again, another attribute, another dimension to the analysis that we've got within iplicit. I might want to backdate that. Because we date and timestamp every transaction in the system, I want to do retrospective reporting. What was the exchange rate on the 7th of September? What was my aged debtors, or what was my aged creditors report on the 13th of June? All of that sort of information should be available at your fingertips. And again, not from a finance team's point of view, but other users across the organisation. If I'm a non-profit organisation, fund accounting might be really important to us. Within iplicit, we've got dimensions, those analysis fields, just some of those that Luke has already mentioned, to describe the different fund types that I've got. I can then put those funds, my funds, into those particular fund types. Again, all configurable without having to resort to any sort of bespoking of the software or any workarounds or anything like that, because I want a dimension, I just add it to my finance system. Then I can take a look at my TB. And then I can take a look at TB just in a normal SORPy kind of way. But I might want a TB that's looking at things for different funds. So I've got my SORP and SOFA reporting out. I can also ring fence those funds as well as from a posting point of view. So my restricted funds can expend expenditure, or income in these particular areas as well. We may have lots of projects for project reporting. Projects is just another dimension as far as iplicit is concerned. But because I can have those different, again, different dimensions, I might want to see my projects by particular activities. I might want to see those projects by the countries that they're running in. I might want to see those projects by the projects that we're actually doing in those countries. I might want to see those project costs in different ways and shape that, because I've got that dimensional activity, those different abilities to shape and sort that data, like having a pivot table in Excel, but in your finance system. So I can twist the finance system's data to display it in the ways and shapes that I want across the organization. And that goes down from an organization from a day-to-day data entry point of view, but also from a budgeting point of view. Budget at all these different levels can roll up to the GL, or maybe have a budget for a particular program or a particular activity. So other reporting areas would be around, so these are traditional, these aren't traditional in any way, shape or form. This is, in terms of being able to get transactional analysis and drill downs into data, is one of the areas that these inquiry screens are really useful for. But we do have within iplicit other ways of doing it. And then these are used a lot from a month-end point of view. I want to take my, we call them analytics. So we've got those inquiries that we've seen. We've also can run traditional reports. These are really handy for reports, for reporting at month end and period end, but these are your traditional reports that are print out, reports that are stored. But all these reports can be stored within iplicit. They can also be run on demand at any point in time, and we have scheduling tools within iplicit. So when I've done my month end, I might have a scheduling pack that just goes and prints out my aged debtors, my aged creditors, the lead schedules that I need, the supporting information, my P&Ls and balance sheets, TBs, GL histories, all that sort of stuff can be stored and saved because we know we like to have these sorts of things around, even though technically all that information is within iplicit anyway, so you don't have to do that. But we can do that traditional method of reporting as well. That's also handy if you're an outsourcing, if you're an outsourcer or an accounting practice, maybe you're delivering services for your clients, and being able to deliver this sort of information via email, through the web browser, through the client portal within iplicit is another area of use. So we can run all those reports. From a self-service point of view, was accountants like sort of things in columns and rows and things like that, but that's not necessarily for everybody. So we've also got graphical analysis of all that content, which is really handy in terms of being able to analyze information, especially looking at information over time as well, to be able to highlight things to different users, with the ability to present in iplicit those different graphical representations to the end users from the standards that the finance team have decreed. But with our data access controls within iplicit, we can ring fence data. So Luke might have exactly the same chart of accounts or graphical representations of data that I do when I log in. But from a self-service point of view, when Luke's logging in, he's looking at his department's reports, his cost center, his region, his legal entity, because again, we can ring fence those dimensions from a data security point of view, which one, keeps the auditors happy, two, stops people nosing around all the bits of the financial data that they're not allowed to. But it also means that the finance team can give real, live, good information that's relevant, that's accessible, that's also with the ability to, if I haven't timed out, and with the ability to drill into that information, look at the different transactional information, and also download that data into Excel and download it as PDF files as well. Self-service doesn't need to stop there though. Self-service is fine because we're iplicit, so we're a cloud-based finance system, so you can access iplicit from anywhere at any point in time. What we can also do is access iplicit through mobile devices. So I can self-serve. I just pop this up. So this is iplicit running on in this case, an Android phone. So we've got an app for Android and iOS devices. I'm just going to log in with my I'm not going to log in with my fingerprint. I'm going to log in with a password. Now I'm authenticating with my fingerprint. Once I've done that, that self-service allows me as a non-finance user perhaps to be able to look at things from an authorization point of view, look at requisitions, add a purchase order, do my expenses, fill in a timesheet. But I can also access all those dashboards and charts that we were just looking at on my mobile phone, which gives me live real-time access to the bits of the finance system that's important to me, with all that drill down, with that ability to analyze that data in the ways that I want. So self-service shouldn't just extend out to the ability to be able to access the finance system online. We also finding that having things through the mobile apps is really important from an end user's point of view. I mean, having a system that's live, real time, and especially with the authorizations in, well, it doesn't just help from a reporting point of view. But I might want some detailed analysis and charts out in different ways, shapes, and forms, and charts and accounts that I can do something with or manipulate that data. So let me just log into this one. These graphical representations, in this case, this is my deferred income analysis. So I've got that, again, by using those different dimensions, using that different analysis, I can now filter information. And because I've got live reporting information, as an end user, I can change information in those reports. I can also look at the analysis levels. I can drill into information. I can look at and analyze out the data that's suiting me from my reporting and analysis points of view, but also be able to drill down into the transactions to get into the information that I need to as well. So having live access to information tends to be really important. And although we've been showing you things through our software itself, we do like Excel, so I can export anything out of iplicit into Excel. But what we've also done is included from a reporting point of view, an iplicit button that you can get from the Excel Microsoft Store. That Excel button for iplicit then allows me to take any of those analysis fields, any of those inquiries that I've got, and by using the same filters that I've got from within the finance software, I can then go through and ask Excel to go and get all of that data from my finance system. This way, it's now creating a live link between this spreadsheet, this worksheet, and the finance system. So I open up this spreadsheet tomorrow, click the refresh button, it'll be the latest set of data. It means that I can still do the analysis with it in a spreadsheet that I'm comfortable and familiar with, that we tend to like a lot from a an accountant's point of view, but I can take that information, and because it's in Excel and it all work with the local version of Excel, the web version of Excel, I can take all that information and share it around the organization as well. This could be a spreadsheet that's set on SharePoint, for example. Accessible from my phone or even tablet device. In addition to that, if I wanted more pixel perfect reporting analysis, here's something I started but I haven't finished, which is what my wife complains about a lot in my life. What I don't have with her is a function, an implicit function, to add in. So we've given Excel the ability to inquire on a cell-by-cell basis information out of the finance system. So if I wanted a nominal account code description to appear in this report, and I wanted that to be based on that nominal code there, and if I just drag that down, I'm doing exactly the same here from a transactional point of view. So I want to go and get some balances out of the nominal ledger for that company, for that nominal account code, for this accounting period. Using that same sort of implicit function, if I then drag that down, drag that across. The big difference here is I'm not exporting the data out of the finance system into an Excel spreadsheet. I'm now creating a live version of our management accounts, our cash flow reports. I'll show you those in a second. Taking that information and then being able to end users, different users of that information, being able to take that data and put that into different formats. But those reports and spreadsheets are all live now, not waiting for the finance team at month end to when you're already really busy to produce that sort of information for those end users. And that can extend out to departmental profit and loss accounts, for example. I want to bring in some actuals, some budgets, some variances, all of that information with the ability from a transactional point of view. I might still want to be able to drill down into those transactions, even if it's from an Excel spreadsheet. So because I can get to that data and that data is being presented live, I can get to that analysis from anywhere within the spreadsheet. In addition to that, I might want to do cash flow reporting. I might have cash flow I wanted to produce, but because that cash flow was gained, I can format it in Excel. We've got unlimited budgeting and forecasting that I can pull in from iplicit, the single source of the truth, into these spreadsheets, so those spreadsheets can automatically update and go through. And then finally, there's lots more I can show you about Excel, but I'm conscious we're now right at the very end of today's session. The final bit of other external reporting was everyone's favorite business intelligence tool, or the most commonly used business intelligence tool that we come across is obviously Power BI, but Power BI can be powered by, because we're a cloud-based piece of software, all of those inquiries that we've been looking at today are all available via iplicit's APIs. So I can then use, realistically, any cloud-based business intelligence tool, whether it's Power BI, whether it's Hyperion, different analysis tools that have the ability to connect to our APIs and suck out that data from iplicit on a live basis, and then I can merge it with my Salesforce data or whatever else it was. So that ability to, again, take the information, analyze it out in different analysis tools, and also grow that data with other areas is, again, quite a common topic that comes up in conversations to our customers. That's it, I've finished. I'll shut up now. We're going to have a Q&A session shortly, so we'll join you for that. I'm going to hand back to Luke.
Brilliant, thank you, Guy. Yes, as you say, there's quite a few questions, so we'll dive into those. I should be able to cover off the first couple, and then I'll hand over to you for some of the product-specific ones.
Okay.
So the first one is around self-service and data access. And it's probably worth me sharing a story on this, actually. So I was working with a book publisher fairly recently, and they had quite a small finance team. It was 4 or 5 people, but a very large accounts team. And through the discovery process, we went to site for a full day workshop with them. And what we discovered through that is a lot of their day was spent answering internal queries from the accounts team. Things like, can you run a customer statement for me? Or, can I have this customer report? And that was taking up maybe, 30–40% of the day at busy points in the month and the quarter. So essentially, the end point of that was we created light users for the finance team so they could self-serve, run those reports and those statements themselves, and completely alleviate any of that from the finance team. It would just be, real specifics or sense checks the finance team would need to get involved in. It is worth kind of going back to the initial question, though. The accounts team did have a very locked down version of a user license, so that's all they could do as such, and that was, at request, so they couldn't see things like payroll information, or bank balances and so on. It was very much self-serve just for that very specific task, but it injected a lot of time back into the business and obviously made the finance team much more efficient around that. That was quite a long-winded answer. The next one is, how long does it take to set up iplicit? So I touched on this at the very start of the session today. 16 days is the average project for us. The answer is it's based around scope of the project. So if you've got a group of 50 entities, that's going to be a little bit different to say one entity in a 5-user setup. There's going to be some differences. Another key consideration is data volume, but 16 costed days is average. And I wouldn't say it would go up hugely from that or too much below that. That's around it. That's a good line in the sand. The way we deliver that is a tried and tested implementation methodology that we've used over many, many projects. Obviously, you saw the number around the customers on platform and so on. So we're very confident in that 16-day number. A couple more questions here, Guy. I think some more coming in as well, actually. So we've got one on cash flow reporting. I know you kind of covered that off. We might have time to get into that in a bit more detail, but this is a really good one. How do I report on data in my old system if I switch across to iplicit?
It is a really good question. So we can upload, usually on an implementation with iplicit, we'll have a new chart of accounts. Rarely do I get customers saying, oh, I really love my old Sage Line 50 chart of accounts, or I really like my old Sun chart of accounts. So you'll have a brand new chart of accounts with iplicit with the dimensions and the analysis levels that you need. Obviously, there's an exercise to map your historical TBs onto that, so we can get management reporting analysis out over time. But again, usually we can put that into a spreadsheet and just import it in, so that's a fairly straightforward task. However, we've also got an archiving area within iplicit. So if you do have legacy information that you don't want to have sat on that server or within this system that might be old to begin with, we can take all of the transactional information, so sales ledger, purchase ledger, nominal ledger, so I can produce general ledger TBs, I can produce age debtors and age creditors information. I can even done it so you can, if you've got other document management systems, for example, and you've kept all of your scanned in all your purchase invoices and things like that, we can take all of that information and hold it within an archive area in iplicit. I can quickly show you if you want to see that. Right. We'll reach out to Luke in a minute. What the archiving area does, it allows me to hold all of that data, hold all those documents, and we bring those documents in however those documents have been were entered in, and the dimensions, the analysis that they're stored within your legacy finance system. So you've got them, then they're being backed up securely, held by iplicit, so I can use them for analysis and reporting. And you can hold. Typically, we'll bring in, I'll bring in at least 7 years worth of information, because that's what keeps us compliant for HMRC, but we can bring in more than that if we wanted to. So, and then I can get my different historical TBs out that way. That tends to be really popular. And in the sales and purchase ledger accounts, you can view the historical transactions, even if you're using new account codes for your sales or purchase ledger accounts, that type of thing. So that's proven really popular, and stops, if people have got an old server, for example, or they're not on a friendly terms with their old software provider, that type of thing. So that's quite handy for that. Is that okay?
Great, yeah, thank you, guys. Just to add to that, it is really unique in the marketplace. It's not something that I'd seen prior to joining iplicit. Being able to lift and shift 7 years of financial information into an archive. Typically, what you would get with other options or other solutions on the marketplace are opening balances, monthly movements, a TB, maybe outstanding transactions, and then relying on an Excel archive maybe, or to Guy's point, paying a right to use license for your current system. So it's a really unique offering as such. Last question here, Guy, is around cash flow reporting. So I touched on that before, and I know you showed a little bit of it. I don't know if there's any more you would like to show.
Yeah, we've got, there's plenty of things around cash flow reporting. So we've got inbuilt cash flow reporting tools and analysis. Obviously, for things like sales and purchase ledger transactions, we'll have expected payment dates. We've got unlimited amounts of budgeting and forecasting that we can store within iplicit, and also you can revise budgets and forecasts at any point in time. And then I can produce budgeting, reporting information. I can do cash flow. To be fair, I can't do cash flow. I'm not great at doing cash flow manipulation and moving things around necessarily in iplicit. That's when I'll take the information and I'll put it into a, if I flash this up, I'll put that into use the inquiries to pull that data out into Excel and use Excel to do what if analysis and different scenario planning and things like that. But it does mean that because I take this report, for example, this spreadsheet will take my implicit data. This is summarizing it. If I just wait for Excel to finish. I've got some other tabs on this if this will go in. There you go. So I can pull out all the balances. I can pull out debtors and creditors information down at a transactional level as well through the inquiries, and then pull out all the due dates, and then I just do some lookups on that to pull it into the right periods within my cash flow statement. So that's cool. And I can bring in obviously actuals, and then I can bring in the forecasts or the budgets and have different scenario planning using iplicit as a single source of the truth, but using the Excel that I'm comfortable and working with to manipulate that data. So that tends to be quite popular for that.
Thanks, Guy. Another question's come in. I know I said that last one was the last one, but it's great to see. So you mentioned lead schedules in your demo. Could you show us an example of these, please?
If I've got some lead schedules in this demo, yes, of course I can. Lead schedules, I can do them through our analytics tools. So if I've got some in here, which I haven't in this one, where have I put them? Bear with me. I can either build them in inquiry screens or take them through an Excel template. I've got one on here. One thing I forgot to mention, did I mention about our accounts packs? The fact that we can map your statutory accounts onto different, yeah, I did, didn't I? We did that right at the beginning. I haven't got any lead schedule templates. Paul, I can, I've got some example lead schedules that I've got in Excel. I've got your email address, so I haven't got them on this computer, but I can send those over I'll send you over a set of examples if you'd like to have a look at those.
That's great.
Again,
Thanks.
so it's either through analytics through our inquiries, or we use Excel to shape the lead schedules in the format I want. Then we do the same for example, I haven't got a set of lead schedules on this box, but I do have. I did have some statutory accounts. Yeah, this is just a set of statutory accounts just in Excel, but I can use those implicit functions to pull in the balances for that set of accounts as well. So I'll do the same for lead schedules too. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Guy. That's all of the questions.
Excellent. So that leaves us with one final slide.
Yes, and this is just around getting into a little more detail. I would say the reporting webinar, more than almost any other subject we would cover, is very bespoke to individual organizations. So whilst we've shown some areas that could fit multiple organizations, what we always like to do, and I think Guy touched on this, is work backwards from what you're looking to achieve and then show you how that's achievable in iplicit. So again, it's more pertinent than ever for us to have a potentially one-on-one conversation to get into that detail and show you how iplicit could work for your organization. So, you know, the dimensions and the structure might not be applicable to how you work at all. So we'll be able to get into that in a lot more detail specifically around this subject. So it would be great to hear from you. Feel free to reach out and do a one-on-one demo.
I think there's also some handouts as well in the handout area of GoToWebinar. You can we'll be sending out an email if you needed to rewatch the webinar or share it with any colleagues as well. So it's available on demand once GoToWebinar's finished processing it. So that won't be too long.
Yes, great point. Everyone who's registered today will get a recording link once that's ready as well. Yes, outside of that, thank you very much for your time today. Any follow-up questions, feel free to email me or reach out if you would like to see more of the product.
Thanks everyone for your time. Catch you on the next one.
Have a good day.
Bye.